Letter 28. Except ye be as little children. I once heard a man refer to this world as the play world, for, said he, we are all children here, and we create the environment that we desire. As a child at play can turn a chair into a tower or a prancing steed, so we in this world can make real for the moment whatever we imagine. Has it never filled you with amazement? That absolute vividness of the imagination of children? A child says unblushingly and with conviction, that rug is a garden. That plank in the floor is a river. That chair is a castle, and I am a king. Why does he say these things? How can he say these things? Because, and here's the point, he still subconsciously remembers the life out here, which he so lately left. He has carried over with him into the life of earth something of his lost freedom and power of imagination. That does not mean that all things in this world are imaginary. Far from it. Objects here, objects existing in tenuous matter, are as real and comparatively substantial as with you, but there is the possibility of creation here, creation in a form of matter even more subtle still, thought substance. If you create something on earth in solid matter, you create it first in thought substance, but there is this difference between your creation and ours. Until you have molded solid matter around your thought pattern, you do not believe that the thought pattern really exists save in your own fancy. We out here can see the thought creations of others if we and they will it so. We can also, and I tell you this for your comfort, we can also see your thought creations. And by adding the strength of our will to yours, we can help you to realize them in substantial form. Sometimes we build here bit by bit, in the four-dimensional world, especially when we wish to leave a thing for others to see and enjoy, when we wish a thing to survive for a long time. But a thought form is visible to all highly developed spirits. Of course, you understand that not all spirits are highly developed. In fact, very few are far progressed, but the dullest man out here has something which most of you have lost, the faith in his own thought creations. Now, the power which makes creation possible is not lost to a soul when it takes on solid matter again. But the power is gradually overcome, and the imagination is discouraged by the incredulity of mature men and women, who say constantly to the child, "That is only play. That is not really so. That is only imagination." If you print these letters, I wish you would insert here fragments from that wonderful poem of Wordsworth, intimations of immortality from recollections of early childhood. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come. From God, who is our home. Heaven lies about us in our infancy, shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy, but he beholds the light, and whence it flows, he sees it in his joy. The youth, who daily farther from the east must travel, still as nature's priest, and by the vision splendid, is on his way attended. At length the man perceives it die away, and fade into the light of common day. There is almost no limit to the possibilities of the imagination, but to get the full power of it, one must trust one's imagination. If you say to yourself constantly, as the mother says to the child, "But this is only play, this is not real," you never can make real the things you have created in thought. The imagination itself is like a child and must be encouraged and believed in, or it cannot develop and do its perfect work. It is really fortunate for some of you that I am out here. I can do more for you here than there, because I have even greater faith in my imagination than I had before. The man who called this the play world has been trying all sorts of experiments with the power in himself. I have not his permission to tell the stories he tells me, but they would surprise you. For one thing, he helped his wife, after his so-called death, to carry out a joint plan of theirs, which had seemed impossible to them before because of their lack of real faith. It was for the erection of a certain kind of house. But do not fancy that most people here are trying to build houses on earth. Far from it. Most of my fellow citizens are willing to work where they are, and to let the earth alone. Of course, there are dreamers like me who are not satisfied with one world and who like to have their fingers in both, but they are rather rare, as poets are rare on earth. To most men, the world they happen to be in is sufficient for the time being. There is a certain fancy of mine, however, which it will amuse me to help realize on earth. You may not know that I am doing it, but I shall know. I would not, for the world, as you say, disturb anybody by even the thought that I am fussing around in affairs which now are theirs. But if, unseen and unfelt, I can help with the power of my self-confident imagination, there will be no harm done, and I shall have demonstrated something. Letter 29. An unexpected warning. I should be very sorry if the reading of these letters of mine should cause foolish and unthinking people to go spirit hunting, inviting into their human sphere the irresponsible and often lying elemental spirits. Tell them not to do it. My coming in this way through your hand is quite another matter. I could not do it if I had not been instructed in the scientific method of procedure, and I also could not do it if you should constantly interrupt me by side thoughts of your own, and by questions relevant or irrelevant. It is because you are perfectly passive, and not even curious, letting me use your hand as on earth I would have used the hand of my stenographer, that I am able to write long and connected sentences. Most spirit communications, even when genuine, have little value, for the reason that they are nearly always colored by the mind of the person through whom they pass. You are right in reading nothing on the subject while these messages are coming, and in thinking nothing about this plane of life where I am. Thus you avoid preconceived ideas, which would interrupt the flow of my ideas. You know perhaps that, while on earth I investigated spiritualism as I investigated many things of an occult nature, looking always for the truth that was behind them. But I was convinced then, and I am now more than ever convinced, that, except for the scientific demonstration that such things can be, which of course has value as a demonstration only, most spirit hunting is not only a waste of time, but an absolute detriment to those who engage in it. This may sound strange coming from a so-called spirit, one who is actually at this time in communication with the world. If that is so, I cannot help it. If I seem inconsistent, then I seem so, that is all. But I wish to go on record as discouraging irresponsible mediumship. If a person sitting for mediumship could be sure that, at the other end of the psychic line, there was an entity who had something sincere and important to say, and who really could use him or her to say it through, it would be another matter. But this world out here is full of vagrants, even as the earth. As this world is peopled largely from your world, it is inevitable that we have the same kind of beings that you have. They have not changed much in passing through the doors of death. Would you advise any delicate and sensitive woman to sit down in the center of Hyde Park and invite the passing crowds to come and speak through her, or touch her, or mingle their magnetism with hers? You shudder. You would shudder more had you seen some of the things which I have seen. Then, too, there is another class of beings here, the kind which we used to hear the theosophists call elementals. Now, there's been a lot of nonsense written about elementals, but take this for a fact. There are units of energy, units of consciousness, which correspond pretty closely to what the theosophists understand by elementals. These entities are not, as a rule, very highly developed, but as the stage of earth life is the stage to which they aspire, and as it is the next inevitable stage in their evolution, they are drawn to it powerfully. So do not be too sure that the entity which raps on your table or your cupboard is the spirit of your deceased grandfather. It may be merely a blind and very desirous entity, an eager consciousness trying to use you to hasten its own evolution, trying to get into you or through you, so as to enjoy the earth and the coarser vibrations of the earth. It may not be able to harm you, but, on the other hand, it may do you a great deal of harm. You had better discourage such attempts to break through the veil which separates you from them, for the veil is thinner than you think, and though you cannot see through it, you can feel through it. Having said this, my duty in the matter is discharged, and the next time I come, I can tell you a story, maybe, instead of giving you a lecture. I really feel like an astral Scheherazade, but I fear you would tire of me before 1,001 nights were past. 1,001 nights. Before that time I shall have gone on. No, I do not mean died again into another world beyond, but when I get through telling you what I desire you to know about my life here, I want to investigate other stars, if it shall be permitted. I am like a young man who has lately inherited a fortune and has at last unlimited means and opportunity for travel. Though he might stay around home a few months, getting matters in shape and becoming adjusted to his new freedom of movement, yet the time would come when he would want to try his wings. I hope that is not a mixed metaphor. If so, you can edit me. I shall not feel hurt.